Josh, it's so good to be back. I know it's been 2 weeks since we last sat down. Anything you need to do to get fully locked in before we dive in?
Nope. Caffeine is at hand. Do not disturb is engaged. LinkedIn is off my screen to the right, which I have learned can be a distraction, and we don't want that. So, now
Cool.
I'm good to go.
All right. As always, over to you to start for today.
Cool. So, uh, I've always been a big believer that whenever you try to make changes in life, forces outside of your control will do everything possible to keep you from doing that. And the last 2 weeks have been absolute proof that I believe I am absolutely correct. To say the last 2 weeks were speed bumpy would be an understatement. However, it is really nice to be able to sit here and define the last 2 weeks as speed bumpy instead of roadblocky or dead endy or whatever disastrous phrase that we might have said however many weeks ago that it was 10 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. Has it been that long? Man,
I 6 weeks, man.
6 weeks.
It's been only 6 weeks.
We have jam packed so much into it that it feels like time is expanding, for sure. 6 weeks, wow. So goods. There's as tough it has been. Feel anchored in a lot of the techniques and processes that we have talked about, have we put in place. I don't, while I feel the stress and the pressure of everything, I don't feel the spiraling and out of control. So, yeah. And also, I would like to say, if you would indulge me a minute, shout out to one of our biggest fans, Steve, who I met with for 2 hours yesterday and has told me how much all of this has impacted him. And I wanted to shout him out and say, Steve, I appreciate you. I see you. Keep working hard. So, thank you. I will step off my soapbox now.
Look, I mean, this whole thing was about helping one person out there. And the comments and the DMs, they mean a lot. And Steve, I appreciate you. We appreciate you, and the fact that this has helped one person is like mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, happy to hear about. Look, this is where like I told you a couple weeks ago, like, hey, we're only a few weeks into this thing. Like a big part of this is like we're gonna unlock stuff, but it's also about how do we make it stick. And sometimes time and more reps is just what helps things stick, right? And now we have more evidence and more speed bumps, and it's just building this database in our head that like what we're landing on is sticking because you're using it in real life in your business the past few weeks to deal with speed bumps. That
Yes.
awesome to hear. What else?
Um, I'll say if I would love to discover or explore is the better word. I would love to explore today some of the this weird phenomenon that I am experiencing. And I don't think I'm alone in this, but I had two meetings this week where people were seeking my advice on video and marketing and, expanding their business and such. And in the course of just these lunch meetings, over an hour and a sandwich, it they would ask me a question and boom, 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 rattle off strategy and implementation and advice and help and everything. Within their context, they all left and with amazing, maybe amazing. Yeah, I'm not going to try to be too prideful, but left with good next steps and everything like that. And in both of those situations, I went out and I sat in my car for like 30 minutes trying to figure out why I can't do the same thing for myself. And I can't sit down and just be like, what is the go to market strategy for the next 6 months? Or what is this implementation? Or what is this piece? What is that piece? I find it over and over again whenever the context is outside of me. Um, it's super easy, and I'm super sharp, and I'm super focused on, or just, you know, I'm super able to provide what that person is looking for. Flip the script, I seem extremely unable to do it for myself and my business. So I would love to try to explore some of that today if you are game.
Definitely game. I want to make sure I heard you properly. Congrats on the two meetings. Sounds like they both went really well. Conversations that when it's outside your context, you're feeling able to rip off the advice of like video strategy, marketing, whatever they're asking for. Next steps are clear. Sounds like the mind is pretty clear. But then when your question of like, why is it harder for you to do that when it's your own context? Like, what's the gap?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. And this isn't something that I've just noticed within the context of our coaching sessions or in this last. This has been something that I've noticed for quite a long time in my life. You know, whenever it's you know, even to things like advice to a friend, or input on this, that, or the other thing outside of my context, really sharp. And I feel that I could say I'm a trusted advisor to a lot of people, and they come to me and they trust me with problems and questions and all those things. And I'm super humbled by that, and I take that responsibility very seriously. But it's a weird dissonance in my brain of why I can't trust the decisions that I want to make for myself.
I can't trust the decisions I want to make for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is a different framing than I feel unable to do so. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah. It's the well, I think the link is the uh. Well, no, that's not it. I was going to say the link I think is found in the value system, but I'm not exactly sure that's true. But yeah, if I don't trust what I feel that I want to do, then yeah, there is an inability there. So I think those two things are tied. I don't necessarily know what ties the inability and trust thing together, uh, but practically speaking, that's how it plays out.
Okay. Okay. And I'm. Do you mind if I. Can I bring something back from session 5 real quick?
Sure.
What is the tie in, if any, between what you're talking about right now and a lot of what we talked about 2 weeks ago around like when it comes to sales and business development, it feels icky and not tied to your values? Like, is there a link here that you're seeing?
Hmm.
The answer can be no. It triggered something in my mind when you walked me through this.
Sure. Allow me a moment to explore because that's new to me. The end feelings are different. One feels like icky is the right word because it feels like in violation of something. Unsure is the predominant feeling of this idea of setting up and trusting. So I don't feel like it doesn't feel like there's a violation of anything happening. But the end result is still accomplishing nothing. The end result is still stuck. The feelings are different, however.
Okay. Sounds good. And so, before we dive into this, when you're talking about this feeling of like, can't trust the decisions I want to make for myself, are there any trends on like the types of decisions, whether it's like certain functions of your business, any patterns or trends? Wondering how specific we then take our discussion.
maybe the only pattern I can recall would be, it's most of the time if it's something new and unknown, or like new that I've never given it the whole honest try before. Let me try to explain what I'm getting at, because I feel a little cloudy on it and I only have a piece of it.
Hmm.
There are things that I've never done before that I feel confident that I can do. A lot like, a lot with the video business. I just learned how to do it. I just learned how to get into graphic design. I just learned how to, for instance, like I'm setting up some back end stuff on my website, and with customer portals and all this. I've wanted to do this forever, and I've never done it before. It's weird. I could probably break something, but I have no issues in just figuring out and doing it. None whatsoever. Just do the research, do it, no problem. If it fails, cool, we'll fix it. Right? There are certain things like go to market strategies and, um, some of the sales stuff that I've never done before, but I don't have that same, I can do it, I can figure it out. And as I'm talking, I'm wondering, I do not know if this is correct, but I'm going to throw it out there.
Hmm.
I am wondering if it has to do with the difference between things that have to deal with people and things that have to deal with like the non-people side of things, like, you know, the technical side of stuff. I'm wondering if a lot of my hesitation has to deal with things that will ultimately mean interfacing with people instead of interfacing with technology and computers and those things. There might be something there, but I am not 1000% confident that is what it is. So
Okay.
that's as far as I can get right now down that path.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We're only 10 minutes in, and I'm wondering, Josh, how you feel about continuing to circle around it high level for a few more minutes, because we're starting to get a bit more specific, and I'm almost okay with like a few more minutes of like trying to figure out these patterns or trends, because then when we do go deep, we're going to get to the answer quicker because we know kind of what we're going for. And I
Yeah.
think even something as even if it's as broad as GTM sales, people versus non-people, we're already getting much more specific than like what I heard before, which was context for me versus other people. I can't do it, right? So we're
Yeah.
already getting more narrow,
Yeah.
but I'm almost okay sitting here for a bit longer if you are. To
I am. I'm
yeah,
probably gonna
let's
need
keep
your
going.
help digging through it
Yeah, yeah,
because I'm
sure.
I'm feeling like brain stuck in neutral around that. So I'm definitely gonna have to lean on you for helping me dig through some of it.
Let's so dig into it or like kind of dig through what the
Dig
patterns
through
are.
it.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
So, question that comes to mind then for me is, when do you feel this thing the most?
When it's something that I know needs to be done and I've been purposely putting it on the back burner is when the feelings are the most intense and the stuckness is the most sticky.
Okay. And if it's a back end website thing or a technical course or something where it's you and only you, what's the likelihood of putting that stuff on the back burner?
I think that really honestly depends on project per project because, like this customer portal, I've been wanting to do for 2 or 3 years. And I am now just doing it. But then there are other things where I'll be like, the website could really use a full refresh and all that stuff. And in the next week, I'm in it and doing it. So I don't know if there's a prescription to that on there. So that varies quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then two things that I don't know if they're in conflict or if there's like an overlap, Josh. I heard the people versus non-people as maybe a hypothesis of it being something.
Yeah.
But earlier in minute 2 or 3, it was about when it's for somebody else versus for yourself. So those, I don't know if there's a connection there or if those are different.
Yeah, it's hard for me to pull a connection between those two things because I don't have a problem, you know, helping someone externally and offering advice and doing things. I have no issue with that. But I also am stumbling over programs and processes that businesses need to have in order to go do things for other people, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So they, on the surface, it doesn't seem related, but there might be a link somewhere there. But I feel that I don't want to force a link and go down a path that, you know, isn't ultimately going to be good.
Yeah, super fair. Shall we dive in and then see and explore maybe a bit around like what's happening in those moments, what your brain's telling you, and then maybe we keep this channel open of like what are the trends of when this seems to be happening? Because then we can start
Sure.
designing stuff and apply it to specific situations too.
Sure. I think the ability maybe to even recognize some patterns around it and leading up to those things might help give some clues, hopefully.
Okay, that sounds good. Shall we?
Please.
Tell me more about in these moments, what feels like the barrier. What's your brain saying in these moments?
Way too much. So we've talked about the back and forth dialogue in the head. And this time it seems like there's 2 or 3 other opinions that get thrown around in there too. The opinion of I'll call it the opinion of the internet, so where you're going and you're scrolling LinkedIn and you say, oh, I really like that. Oh, okay, I like this solution. Oh, I really like that solution. And those are good things. That voice gets added into the mix. The extrovert introvert voice always gets in there. And then I think there's this there's an underlying tone of I really wish I was underlying tone. I really wish I could pay someone else to do this for me, but that's not an option right now, and I've got to figure it out myself. That is the undercurrent of it, and I do not know how much that plays in it, but I do know that with so many other avenues, going back to the technical side of things, a lot of stuff I really could and wish I would be able to pay someone else to do it, but I can just still figure it out myself. But it still seems that there are a few things that, on that people focused related system side that I don't. It can't. It might be a possibility of the enormity of growing or the enormity of building a system that has to be continually maintained versus a task or a workflow that sets it and forgets it. Like when the website refresh is done, it's done until it needs done again. When the customer portal is done, it is done until a refresh is needed. But I think maybe some of my hesitancies around some of these sales and GDM strategies and stuff is the knowing that it needs to continually be watered and continually be refreshed, and not knowing if I have the the actual bandwidth to do that. Does that track or make any type of sense at all?
I'm tracking. I'm
Okay.
tracking on it. So check mark there. The interesting thing here, Josh, and where I don't really have an answer yet, well, I don't have an answer, is like this could be anything, right? It could no meaning like it very well could be about like the building systems that need to be maintained versus setting it and forgetting it, and that could be a bandwidth thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could very well be a dealing with people versus dealing with technical and more of a comfort thing. You've told me about like
Yeah.
introvert and I don't know if
Yeah.
that's even part of it, right? It could
Yep.
be that. It could also be it being easier to dish out advice and harder to take it for ourselves, like what you started with today.
Mm-hmm.
And full disclosure, my pre-video this morning, I was talking about the last session and the sales thing and tying to values because I saw the weight of the ickiness around that topic, and so I don't mean to bring it up back, but it, I wouldn't be surprised if it even is tied to some values thing too. And so part one is I'm tracking. Part two is this is a hard one for me to say. Oh yeah, hey, maybe it's that because
Mm-hmm.
it could be one of four or five things, and that's why I'm thinking like let's keep. I'll
Yeah.
get your reaction to that because it could be any of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely see it. I definitely feel. Uh, I think this is the first issue that we're coming across where it could be all like the root of it could be like all of these things. This one seems super intertwined, where we've been able to kind of maybe have one or two threads that were interlinked in the thing and be able to. This one this one seems tied to so much of the other stuff that we have been talking about over the course of the last 5 sessions. And perhaps that's also why it's been one of the hardest things for me to do in the life of the business, because it is all of this stuff. Um, so, uh, but from my side, it's really weird because I think I can identify all of those pieces, and I desperately want something to unify all of those pieces, but I'm not sure there is something to unify all of those pieces. I think this is the first time that it really just feels like a whole bunch of different things thrown on a plate. Instead of like sitting down and a chef preparing a meal and there's a theme to the meal and everything, it's just it's like a buffet of problems and you've slapped everything on without rhyme or reason. I don't know if that's true, but in this moment, it's how I am feeling about it.
Yeah, fair, fair. Tell me about when you say the word pieces. Like, what does pieces mean in this context?
So the pieces are like all the different little things that can be hanging up. Like, is it a people thing? Is it a ongoing bandwidth thing? Is it this thing? Like, all of those things could be true. And if you solve for one of them, I'm not like it doesn't. It's not like I could definitively say, "Oh, I'm that percentage closer to getting to where I want to be," because the enormity of everything else is still there. So it's like I don't know. It's not like it doesn't feel like a knot per se, where like loosen one thing on the knot, and then the whole knot begins to unravel. It feels just like a series of like bolts that you've got to either get them all before it breaks loose and you can make any progress. And that's a massive. That's how it feels. I don't know if that's how it is, but it's how it feels. I don't want to completely close myself off from there being something that helps alleviate it and it being a knot, but it really feels so disparate. So all these places are so locked down individually that it's kind of have to go through that whole thing.
Okay. Okay. So tell me, if you were guaranteed to get this all like fully dialed in, optimized, you're operating exactly as you want to be operating, and you call me a few weeks from now and you say that session 6 thing, like eventually we got it sorted and we're good. Just tell me about how that version of you is operating when you don't have the heaviness of this.
Great question. I think the proof of that would be I could sit down in 2 weeks and say, I've made this definitive step towards this definitive goal. Where, okay, or let me try that again and get more specific. I have made a decision on a GTM strategy that I want to implement. Like in 2 weeks, if all this is gone, I would be able to definitively say I have made this decision to do this, and I am attempting to implement this one thing. So it would be able to success, as is with a lot of these things in our sessions, naming it and shrinking, being able to shrink it down, because the whole thing seems very enormous.
You've said GTM 3 or 4 times today.
It's the thing that's been on my mind the most over the last couple of weeks, and so it's like a real practical thing that I'm legitimately going through right now. It's not something that just it's plagued me in the past, or that's legitimately the thing that I want to leave 2025 with for the first time in the history of the business.
Yeah.
So that's I think why it keeps coming up. It is super top of mind.
You want to keep that as our example maybe for the next bit and see if using an example helps find broader patterns. Okay, cool. And so 2 weeks from now, you're calling me saying, okay, I've made a decision on GTM and I'm going to implement or try something. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In order for that to happen, what do you want to land with on this session as a step forward?
I can instantly tell you that when you ask that question, all 5 of those like voice things that we just talked about instantly started chattering. Like instantly. And I don't feel like brain foggy, but it feels like cloudy without a clarity issue. Like instantly I got like I got that the real quick self-doubt, you'll never be able to do it anyway, but I try. I got we need more information with it. We got the gurus, the internet voice gurus going through and like, oh, you can do this and 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 shiny red ball it, and then the underlying current of, are you even going to have the bandwidth to do this? So I would like to identify the predominant in this session. I would like to try to find a way to identify the real problem from the predominant voice that is the major hangup. So far, I've been able to work the introvert extrovert thing. Like I've got I got the foundations of a great system in place for that interplay. I think ignoring the internet gurus is very easy. Just stay away from it for a couple of weeks. Maybe it's this this function of this voice of the overwhelming need for bandwidth that I don't have, and trying to understand what it's really trying to say. If I can learn how to communicate with that, maybe that'll be easier to find next steps.
Can I reflect that to make sure? Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so immediately when I asked you, the 5 voices came in. The first 2 things you said on the voices were the self-doubt, which we've talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, not surprising that that's going to come in, right?
Right.
Whenever we grow and we break new territory, shoe's going to drop, what's going to happen, self-doubt,
Yeah.
all good. It's not about
Yeah.
preventing that, it's about dealing with it, right? So self-doubt came in. Information. Need more information. That's an interesting one. That was number 2 that you said. Okay? Let's take note of that. Wanting to identify what it is from the predominant voice, the main angle, the main barrier, and wanting to understand how to communicate with that. Yeah, and this idea of bandwidth is what's feeling predominant right now.
It is. It is. You know, lots of solopreneurs can understand. You've got so much energy. You've got so much time, and bandwidth is always in question. Like, you can't create a 25th and 26th hour of the day. As much as I would love to be able to, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who would love to be able to create a 25th or 26th hour of the day, we can't do that. So that feels like the biggest hang up in some of these things, is the knowing of the continual bandwidth requirements that I don't know if I have those. That I don't know if I have those resources. That feels like the unaddressable hang up voice. The rest of the ones I can supplement, right? I can supplement information. I can supplement that self-doubt, introvert, extrovert voice. I can work around that. But this one seems a little unaddressable because I just can't create more bandwidth out of anything without, dropping a ton of other stuff that can't be dropped.
Okay. Can we test this with 2 questions?
Yeah, do it.
I'm just going to write them down to make sure I don't forget them. Okay, my first one's going to sound kind of catastrophic. It's a bit of a... Mind if I ask it?
Yeah, cool.
I know you long enough now that I think I can ask this question. You get a text message from someone that says, Josh, I know how much you love your truck, and if you don't draft up a GTM strategy by Sunday, I'm going to give you all the sleep, so you're going to wake up refreshed tomorrow, but if you don't draft something by Sunday, I'm going to come and steal your truck, and there's nothing you can do about it. In that situation, Josh, what would you do the next 2 days to draft some sort of GTM plan to save the truck?
I'm going to shock you here and say, like, just take the truck. Like, I know, like it immediately, that was like, as you were asking the question, I'll just take the truck. Like, weird. And, that's not what I would want to operate, but I would say past that initial, just take the truck, it's like, I don't know, can I just go find, like, just copy and paste the template to hand it in, hand it into the teacher, get credit for it. And, you know, that isn't something like, if you put, it's like if you're going to put the proverbial firearm to the head and say, you know, it's got to be done. And my initial response is take the truck, and my secondary response is I'll just copy and paste it to get credit for the work and see, you know, if it's a C and I get to keep my truck, I guess that's cool. But that doesn't line up with my values of doing the best of everything that I can do. And it wouldn't be what I'd want to do for the business, and it wouldn't be anything. So, you know, like I think maybe that's part of it too. Is I am aware of the need to put the right sales system, the right GTM strategies in place that don't violate the values. I'm aware of those things. But it feels that in order to get to that right system, I'm going to have to just turn in copied homework until it's figured out. And I really don't like the idea of having to do that. Like just grabbing something from somebody and throwing it in there and, you know, working with it. Because, and then I'll tie that directly to the bandwidth thing, because I don't have the bandwidth to do it anyway. If I'm going to put something else in place that isn't a good enough fit, nothing's ever a perfect fit. I'm not saying that. But if I gotta double the bandwidth down, not just put the bandwidth of implementing something, but then implementing and crafting it to this thing, that's a double commitment. And you know, certain people learn real well like doing that. I'm not one of them. Like that's not, you know, that's counterproductive. It feels counterproductive to me to, you know, try to make a puzzle piece fit and pounding it on the table and, like, you know, shaving the edges off and doing all these things to make it fit. Well, then the picture at the end of the day isn't going to be complete. And I don't, as I say, I would rather take the time to find the right place for the puzzle piece and the right puzzle piece for the solution, which then you go to the voice of the internet and all the gurus and all the things and all that stuff. So, round and round it goes.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Okay. So then, question two. You get an email. It's a good email. You get an email after our session, or it comes in right now, and it is a third year student from, you're in Virginia, so from UVA. UVA email comes in, third year student. It wants to basically be a video producer. Wants to do what you're doing. Doesn't have an internship for the summer. It's May 30th. And they're like, Josh, this is what I care about. This is what I can do. I got a 4.0 GPA. I have the time, and I'm ready to dedicate my whole effing summer to this. Will you hire me for no money because I just want the experience and I'm going to work so hard for you? You get that email, and you have a chance to offload stuff to that person. What impact does that have on GTM?
Only semi-related. I wouldn't like allow the person to work for no money. I can't do that. But I don't know why that was like, hey,
Sure.
wait a minute.
Fair.
But to honor your question, uh, yeah, it would just be, I think we would have to we would be spending time working, doing the things that we do and developing the relationship as we go on and listening to the ideas and bouncing and having another person who's real and in the mix, seeing in real time what I do, how I operate, and then getting that feedback, would have more weight than just implementing a system by someone who has been not lived and breathed what we do at Left Five, right? You know, even if it's just for a few, even if it's just for a little bit, um, you know, they get the ethos. They've been on a few shoots. They see, you know, they get an idea or a hint or a clue at to what we value, how we work, how we deal with our customers, the customers that we like working with, and so on and so forth. Them having that type of idea would give them more insight into how to do those things. And I would also be more likely to listen, implement, go, and do, because I know that have they have insights that you can't buy off the shelf.
Okay, interesting. I was trying to get at that from the angle of like that person frees up time because you delegate a bunch of stuff to them.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Well,
happens? Yeah, go
but it's
ahead.
a trust thing, right? Like we talked about how a lot of things with me is like very relational based,
Sure.
and I think we talked last time about the reason why this relationship happened was time and content, and those type of things. Like I knew a little bit about you and how you operated, and I thought it would be a good fit, and it made sense because of all of that. So to me, when you say, "Well, someone's coming to join you," it's like, okay, well, I'm developing a relationship, so then this person, he or she, is going to have this um, insight into be able to help and to go on there, and maybe then we go into the offloading thing. So, like, yeah, for me, relationship first, right? It's
Yeah.
one of those deals.
Okay. That lines up. And so then maybe for me to ask it like super directly, if you somehow hypothetically magically found 10 hours in a week, however that happened, and it had no impact on your current operations, everything's running, but there was 10, 15 hours in a week that opened up, what impact does that free time have on you in how you think about doing some of these things that feel heavy, like GTM?
I'd certainly have the time, but I would also immediately I'm smacking into those other bolts that we're talking about. Like, yeah, I've got more time to research and tinker, maybe tinker the strategies and implement and try to find it. But I'm still like, even as you say that, it's like immediately some of those other bolts begin to come
Mm-hmm.
up.
What does that say to you then about the likelihood that this is about bandwidth?
I would say that it's a piece, but it's not the piece, right? Um, it's not like the last bolt that would be able to be taken off. Um, so there, but manageable, because you're right. There are ways to buy back time and find time, and we always tend to prioritize what we not we tend to. Every one of us will prioritize what is actually important to us on the fundamental level. Uh, so I guess I have to figure out why I have why I know that this GTM strategy is important, but why is it not important enough to make it work? And why can I over prioritize other things that I don't know how to get past? So,
So if we come up a level for a sec, just to look at where we're at. Earlier when you said there was a few voices and one of them was like, "Oh, I want to pay someone to just take this off my plate." Circling back to this now, like I'm just wondering maybe this isn't purely about freeing up time, right? It might not be about just offloading stuff because, as you're saying, like even if I had 10 hours a week, the other stuff is still there, right? And that's why I've hesitated to just go
Yeah.
into the question of, hey, Josh, what can we do to free up 10 hours a week?
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling that that's not going to be the answer.
Right. And I think I'm gonna make an assumption here. When you brought up this idea of paying someone else to do it, you had an agnostic view of paying anyone to do it. And I took it from I found the person to do it. So it wasn't a very to me it wasn't a hypothetical anything, any hired hand. It was the hired hand. And that's that's a different, those are the answers to those things would be, super different. If I was cool with just handing it over to anyone and paying anyone for it, I could find anyone to do it at a variety of prices and such. And I know that there are business owners that do that, and I am cool with that for them. Not the way that I operate. When you ask that hypothetical to me, it's like, oh, cool. I've actually been able to pinpoint the person to do that, if that makes sense.
Is this about finding a GTM strategy or is it about finding the GTM strategy?
I'm going to say it's about finding one of the. And I know
Okay.
that kind of hedges it because I understand that there's no perfect anything when it comes to to that. But it's like if there's 50 in the world, and I'm sure there's more than 50, but if there's 50 strategies in the world, being able to identify the three or four that most closely aligns to what we do and how we can implement it in a way that fits the current state of things, then that's like the gold, right? Okay, if it's 90% there, right? Like, and we run into this with software platforms and camera purchases and all of these things. There's no perfect camera. There is no perfect lighting setup. There is no perfect microphone. There's no perfect any of these things. But if you find that piece of equipment that can get you 90% of what you want every time, and it minimizes the effort to finish off that other 10 to get to, the look and the feel that you want, that's awesome. So I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for the solution that minimizes the other 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The 90% solution that minimizes the bandwidth needed on the other 10.
What's keeping you from that?
Real possibility that I don't know what I'm looking for. Like there's a real good possible probability that the whole idea of a GTM strategy is so far outside of what I know that it could be looking me in the face and I may not recognize it.
Okay. Okay. I know we're circling here, but I intentionally circling to see what we. Yeah.
Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. And if someone came to you who ran a similar business to you, who was like, Josh, like I'm just starting out, want to learn from you, can you give me some advice over Zoom on like how I should think about GTM? What would you tell that person?
You'd probably need to find someone who knows more about it to that give you a better answer. And I would say, hey, it's one of the struggles that I have, and I would love to be able to help you out. But core value of my business, if I can't be a real, honest, good help to you, walk away. And that's what I'd have to do. I was like, man, best of luck to you. Not, I wouldn't be dismissive, but like, hey, I'm not the guy for that. Uh, I'm not the one that's going to give you that answer. Now, if you find the person that has that, like, send them my way. And maybe we can find it along those lines. But yeah, like I think there's a real um, like okay. Do you, I I know that that you are looking to get married in the future. I believe you've mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
Uh, and have you reached the stage of the what do you want for dinner fight, not fight, but the what do you want for dinner question, where it's I can't tell you what you want, but I can tell you that I don't want that.
Like you're saying you can say what you don't want for dinner, you don't quite know what you want for dinner?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, we talk about that all the time.
yeah,
Yeah, we
okay,
usually have
yeah.
the app
So
open, we're like, we don't want this, but like yeah,
yeah,
I'm following.
yeah. It's
Keep
like,
going.
well, what do you want? I have no idea, but I don't want that. Well, do you
Yeah.
want this? No, I don't want that either. Well, what do you want? I have no idea. It feels it feels with GTM especially. It feels a little bit like that. Um, I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want that. So
What's wrong with that, by the way?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it,
Hmm.
but when you do it enough, you'll understand like it's a frustration of not making progress. Like, I to expand on the metaphor, I'm really hungry for a GTM strategy. Like I'm hungry for it. And that hunger, I can't satiate that hunger because I can't make a decision on what I want to do. I don't want that, but I want something, but I don't want that. And then I just get and so the sand trap of you know of that cycle can get maddening for sure. You know, yeah. I'll just say it can get maddening for sure.
Okay. I I'm integrating these things. Can I take the mic for a minute? Because I
Please,
don't know how concise this is going to be, and I don't know if it's going to be concise or if it's going to add up, but it's in my head somewhere, and I'm going to get it out and see how it
love it.
lands. I have heard a couple things today up front. We talked up front about what this could be about. Part one, is it about you giving advice versus applying it to yourself? Okay? I don't know if it is that. The reason I say that is when I asked you what would you tell the person about GTM strategy, you were like, I don't know, I'm not the guy for that. And so
Hmm.
maybe the trend here is less about whether it's about you or someone else. Maybe it is about areas where you feel like you might not actually know. You've also said that this tends to happen potentially for new and unknown things.
Hmm.
GTM strategy might actually fit into that type of a thing. Um, we have talked about it potentially being about bandwidth and ongoing bandwidth for systems versus setting it and forgetting it. I'm questioning that one a bit because when I asked you if you had 10 hours in the day, what would you do? And like, I don't know that it felt like you said, it's not like the main bolt, right? So I'm wondering about that. And I'm sitting here, and what's pulling at me, Josh, is like, there's going to be things as we're running businesses that like we are naturally, we know, we've done. And there's going to be areas that are brand new that we just don't know. LinkedIn to me 9 months ago, I wrote on my thing this morning, right? I was like, hey, if you were to tell me a year ago that I would be sitting here flipping on a camera after sessions, talking out loud without a script, like I would think you were nuts, right? Like LinkedIn to me 9 months ago was new. There was no coaching session that was going to get me to understand how LinkedIn worked. There were coaching sessions that were going to help me and have helped me get over the hesitation of posting,
Hmm.
but there was no coaching session that was gonna get me to understand LinkedIn. I actually got a mentor for that. And so I'm sitting here wondering, we talked about the 90-10 on your research, keeping the 10% on research. And I'm just wondering if maybe there's a set of things in your business that like you have been less exposed to where we just don't know yet. And that's okay. And everyone has that 10%. I'm just going to stop there and ask you how that's sinking because maybe these voices are loud because there's actually a knowledge thing that we just need to. I don't know. I'll pause there.
That feels super accurate and super correct, applicable to the situation. Um, I have been I have been adjacent in my corporate career, adjacent to GTM strategies, adjacent to sales strategies, but never in the weeds enough to get it. And I think, like, to your point about LinkedIn, um, I think the issues that I'm having there, not on LinkedIn, but the issues that I'm having is I don't understand the basic fundamental concepts of GTM enough. Like, it would be like, I've heard LinkedIn is great, but I don't know how to make an account. I kind of feel a little bit like that when it comes to GTM. Like, I know I need it. I know, like, fundamentally I know that I do. It's not a buzzword. It's not like, you know, a business must have this. I don't know how to sign up for an account. Like, that's the place that I feel. And when I do the research and do all of these things, like, I'm maybe the resource that I'm looking for is, instead of a solution to a problem that I don't understand, I would love to find like an overview of the concepts. Like, you know me enough to know that I am very, like, if I can understand the big overarching theoretical thing of it all, then application and stuff can definitely follow. And I think maybe the biggest thing that I'm missing is the big theoretical overview of this, explained in a way that explain explained in a way that I can apply my value system to. Right? So it's just
Yes.
like nuts and bolts, nuts and bolts, nuts and bolts, nuts and bolts. Da 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 da. This piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece. Okay, cool. Those pieces are fine. What's uh, what's the quintessence, right? That the Greek thing where there were four essences of life, but the fifth essence is what tied everything together. I'm searching for the quintessence of what a GTM strategy would mean for me, and are all the pieces, but I can't get it tied together, and I can't understand it, and therefore it's like it
Mm-hmm.
remains a mystery shrouded in an enigma and all those, all that stuff.
Okay. What what would help? What type of information? What would help you find that tie-in?
Great question, because I can tell you what I don't want. I can when I see it, I can tell you that I don't want it, but I can't tell you what I am looking for. I cannot, like, it's that. Like, when I see it, that's not what I want. When I see it, that's not what I want. When I see it, that's not what I want. And I have yet to stumble upon the thing that's like, that is that's where I can sink my teeth into.
Okay. Can we
And
Sorry.
and then tie that back into, I think I said a couple of weeks ago, where it was, I'm missing some of that intellectual side of things. That intellectual process, that intellectual searching and things, is a really good part of my process, because that's what helps me discover the quintessence of stuff, discover the things that tie it all together. So I don't like, when it comes to GTM, the experience, the swath of my experience is all of the people selling the strategies and the systems and everything else. And it's all just solutions to buy, which means that they're great. They're doing their job to sell their product. Love it. But rarely do the thing that I need is the why behind it. I need the why, and I can't find the why. And if without that why, then I can't apply it to the values, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work for what we do, because we are very, very why driven. Like, when we go to the customer, why do you want to do this? Like, why is your message even important? Like, why? Like, customer portal. Why do I need a customer portal? This is the reason why. Why do I need a website? This is the reason why. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? All of those things are why. When it comes to the GTM strategy, I have all the hows, zero of the why, and it's a block. I can't get past that, because I can't grasp anything on that why. Just the way I'm wired. Just the way I'm wired. Some people can get past it, I can't.
Well, and hey, that's a great thing for us to note, right? Like, even
Sure.
for you going forward, there's going to be other areas in your business and your life where, like, you might be faced with a bunch of information on the how, and it might be just really useful for us to know in our minds, hey, when we're thrown with a bunch of how stuff, we got to make sure that we can level up and ask the why question and feel clear there. Whether we're talking GTM, whether we're talking about other areas, like, that's a good thing for us to know going forward.
Yep. And also, I want to note, for the first time in the history of what we're doing, I have a hard stop at 10:30.
That sounds good.
So we got 15 minutes.
We're
Not
gonna
to
do
wrap
it.
it up, because we can continue this if we need to, but I do have a hard stop today.
All right, sounds good. I think we're going to be able to land this plane in 10 minutes.
I think so.
Okay, you
I
feeling good?
believe.
I believe
Yep.
too. Okay, so the why is really important. Super. Two questions, and maybe a little rapid fire. First one, we've talked GTM strategy. You came in telling me about there's a bunch of areas where it feels heavy. We took GTM as the example. Based on the track we're going down right now, does this seem to track with the other examples too? This whole why versus how piece?
Initially, yes, and I'm just trying to run
Take your
like
time.
a verification, but it feels that way. Yes.
I don't want to rush you, so take a moment to run that through. We got time.
Sure. Yeah. It does. It feels that way. I can say that there are probably some of the other bolts that I've said, like the bandwidth and some of those things are still valid, but they're things that I would be able to put. So knowing the why helps me prioritize what's important. If I know the why behind what I want to do, then I can say very easily, is that urgent? Is it important to do now? No? Okay. Without the why, without the why, I have a hard time prioritizing. And I know that one is very theoretical and one is very practical, but to me, those two things get tied together. If I were to sit down, if you were to say, Josh, put a schedule out in front of you, all the things that you know the why behind, and I need you to put them on your calendar in order of what's important. Cool. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, Josh, I need you to do the same thing with all the things that you don't quite have the understand why, but you know that they're important, and put those in the calendar. Where do they go? That would probably be the legitimate reason why. So maybe that gives me a insight into the bandwidth issue, Because I don't understand the why and I can't prioritize it, the bandwidth required for it is up in the air. And I can't adequately plan for how much bandwidth I need. So maybe that would be the length as to why the bandwidth thing is valid. It's that it's valid and it's ambiguous. And I can't plan for the ambiguous because all the other why things, I know how much bandwidth it takes. I know where to prioritize it. All these things, I can put it in there. Cool. But if I don't understand the why behind things, then I'm going to be less likely to delegate the bandwidth resources to do it. And that leads to the block of not being able to put them in a calendar, make the decisions, pick the strategy, and tie with it. So it comes back to needing to understand the why behind it all, why behind the system.
Is that checking out for you?
It is. That's what checks out, yes.
That sounds like it ties together a bunch of pieces that we didn't really know how they tied together 25
Yes.
minutes ago. Okay.
Yes.
So then, hypothetically, in our last 10 minutes, if we were to design a system that gets you the best chances at uncovering the whys behind these areas, what impact does that have on the rest of the flow?
Then the stuff gets on the calendar, right? Then the stuff gets on the calendar, and then we get to chip away at the process. Then it's the let's try it. Let's implement this here. Let's put this in and play with it and refine it here and refine it there. The hardest thing for me is allocating the resources for something that I can't prioritize. But if we can be able to do that, then it gets on the calendar, and then we can find fit. Where I feel like I feel like I'm working backwards. It's like, let's find a thing, retrofit it to your time, and then maybe we'll discover the why it's important later. So it's almost like when it comes to these things, I'm working very counterintuitively than I've done everything else in my business, which is probably why it always gets pushed away and it gets pushed off and it gets pushed off and it gets pushed off. So it's counterintuitive to how I actually operate.
Okay. That's big.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happens? What does practically flipping that sequence look like? What does it look like to research the why and dedicate time first to understanding the why? What would you do?
It's a great question. And I think I don't know if my normal process would work, because it hasn't worked up until this point. Like, I don't want it to see I don't want it to seem that like I have not done research on this. You know that I have, and I would do it in much the same way that I would have done for any other topic. Grab some books, YouTube videos, following processes, like following things on LinkedIn, doing all that stuff, and trying to bathe in it. But most of the time, I can grasp the why out of it. And for this, I have yet to be able to up until this point. Practically speaking, GTM, strategies, services, ideas, all that stuff is sold in one way and one way only. We'll get you more money for your business. That is not my why. Right? And therefore, yes, I understand practically I need money for my business, but that's never going to get me closer to understanding the why and how it operates. Right? It's not going, that's not. that's not going to get me closer. It's just going to continue to be elusive to me.
Okay. I hear you. And
Yeah,
so can I throw an idea out there if I take my coaching hat out for a sec?
please.
And I might get these words with your values maybe slightly off, so forgive me if I misspeak. What happens if it boils up into something pretty high level, which is okay, if our goal is to serve the underdog and make an impact for those well-meaning businesses, the mom and pop shops, like you told me all about how much that matters to you last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago. If the purpose is that, what happens if the why for a go-to-market strategy is as simple as, well, we want to make sure that we can put ourselves in the best position that the people that we want to impact can see who we truly are and can make a decision as to whether we can benefit them. What happens if like the why is purely like whatever the how is for go to market, it is just all about it is the way that we can put our values out there and show up for the people that we want to serve and give them the opportunity to find us.
Yes, but
Mm-hmm.
the messaging of how that is done doesn't align. The messaging of the systems never aligns to the how of the messaging. I'm really trying to do this in real time, so forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
The messaging of how to accomplish that never aligns to the why, right? To my why. Like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so it's hard for me to bridge that gap on something that I don't know enough about. Like if I were bathed in the systems and I knew the stuff in kind of in and out and I got it, I could build the bridge between those two things. But because there's that gap in my resume, I am having I and they're not building the bridge to it. They're building it directly to the more clients, more money, more this. That why bridge doesn't get built. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault and it's not my fault. It's legitimately just the inability and the lack of the resources, the wood and the nails and the hammer to build that bridge.
I'm gonna push back on you. Not from
Okay.
your logic. I'm gonna push back on you that you don't have the resume or the skills or the resources to bridge that gap. I'm gonna push back on that part because I think you
Okay.
know your business, you know the industry, you know your why, you've seen a lot of the how, but if we're surrounded by a bunch of people on LinkedIn that are connecting GTM strategy to comment this to get my free guide and like here's how you're going to get this and double your client, if that is what we are told about GTM strategy, I don't blame you for that seeming to just clash, right? And for the words of like, well, the bridge is just they've never done it and it's not there and it's a gap. Like I don't blame you for seeing that gap, but I'm going to call BS on that being a gap that you can't bridge. I genuinely believe that you have the brain and the knowledge to bridge that gap. I do think what you are trying to do is incredible because I think when you find that bridge, it's going to stick because it'll be so aligned to your values and so aligned to your why. But the part that I'm going to call BS on is that it's not possible to bridge this gap and that you don't have what you need to do it.
Okay. So I will counter your counter by saying if I have the possibility, I am unfamiliar with the tools and I am unfamiliar with the building materials.
Okay.
So if you're saying I have the aptitude to do it, okay, I'll meet you there. But the aptitude still requires the materials and familiarity with tools and blueprints of how to build that bridge. So when I say I can't do it, maybe that's more of what I'm referring to. I just like I don't know, like I wouldn't even know what tools to build that bridge would be right. So And once again, if your GTM people are only, I'm not saying this person or this company or this strategy doesn't exist. I'm saying I haven't found it. I want to be clear on that. I don't want to broad brush the entire industry. But when it comes to building the bridge between the two, I'm saying I'm fairly certain no one else is leaving the blueprints out there to build that bridge between how and why when the majority of the messaging is based on something that isn't doing that. So, so thank you very much for having the faith in me to say that I would be able to build the bridge. That was very nice of you.
And I mean it. And I mean it. I know we have 3 minutes. I want to land on just your key insights that you've taken out and a couple actions here.
Sure.
What stands out from the past hour?
Definitely stands out the tying of the bandwidth is tied to the ambiguity of all of that. That makes a whole lot more sense. That makes me understand why it's like a dreaded thing to even plan and go. That's a good piece that I think over the next week or so I will be able to unpack a little bit more. And being able to identify and say out loud how important the why is to prioritize things, to help prioritize actions is good too. And maybe that will allow me to improve and make my current planning even more efficient. So I see a benefit to that, not just from conquering the unknown bad stuff, but to making the good stuff even better. I'm excited about that.
Okay. And any actions you want to take going forward in our last minute?
I need to sit down and spend time maybe really trying to define why GTM is important for me outside of a just get more customers. Because the reptile side of the brain is you need more customers so your business survives. Yes, I know, I get that. Got done. But I need to better define the why too. So maybe when I see it, I can recognize it. And that could, I think that's going to be a key part in getting past this hurdle.
Okay. How will you hold yourself accountable to doing that part, defining the why? Oh, can't hear you. Yeah, you're back. You're going to give an hour to start. Yeah. I can't hear you. No, you're back. You're back.
Test 1, 2.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Man.
An hour.
I'm going to need an hour to start this week.
Okay.
And then I'm also going to do an hour next week. I'm going to dedicate 2 hours to digging through this problem, and hopefully I can report back some of the things that I found.
Cool. Okay. I know you got to go. I appreciate you. Call me later if you want. We can just chat on the phone and close out if you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will have to do make sure that I've got all this stuff straight. So I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for today. Once again, great session. We always get somewhere.
We always get somewhere. All right. Great stuff, Josh. We'll talk to you soon, yeah?
Yep.
All right.
See ya.
Cheers.